Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. I'll bring your iPhone.
It's okay, ma'am. We just.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Adi Gopi Jana Badava Girivara Adi Gopi Jana Badava Girivara Adi Sodandana Bhatusharanjana Jasodandana Bhatusharanjana Yamunatira Vanachadi Yamunatira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjavi Adi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjavi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjavi Adi Madhava Kunjavi Adi Gopi Jana Badava Girivara Yadi Gopi Jana Badava Girivara Yadi Gopi Jana Badava Girivara Yadi Gopi Jana Badava Yasodandana Bhajanarandana Jasodanandana Brajajanarandana Yamuna Tira Bhanajani Yamuna Tira Bhanajani Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Adi Radha Madhava Kunjabi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Adi Radha Madhava Kunjabi Vishnu Padparamahamsa Parivijagacharya Astatharasatasi Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavarinda Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Gaur Premanandi. I hear a machine that's chanting japa. Does somebody know where that's coming from? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Canto 3, Chapter 25, Text 26, 325-26. Bhaktya pumanjata viraga aindriyad. Pumanjata vairagya aindriyad. Drishta rutanmad rachananu chintaya. Chitasya yato grahane yoga yukto. Yatishyate rajubhir yoga margai. Bhaktya pamanjata viraga aindriyad. Drishta shrutan mad rachananu chintaya. Chitasya yato grahane yoga yukto. Yatishyate rajubhir yoga margai. Translation: thus consciously engaged in devotional service, in the association of devotees, a person gains distaste for sense gratification, both in this world and in the next, by constantly thinking about the activities of the Lord. This process of Krishna consciousness is the easiest process of mystic power. When one is actually situated on that path of devotional service, he or she is able to control the mind. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In all scriptures, people are encouraged to act in a pious way so that they can enjoy sense gratification, not only in this life but also in the next. For example, one is promised promotion to the heavenly kingdom of higher planets by pious fruitive activities. But a devotee in the association of devotees prefers to contemplate the activities of the Lord. How he has created this universe, how he is maintaining it, and how the creation dissolves and how in the spiritual kingdom the Lord's pastimes are going on. There are full literatures describing these activities of the Lord, especially Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Samhita, and Srimad Bhagavatam. The sincere devotee who associates with devotees gets the opportunity to hear and contemplate this subject matter of the pastimes of the Lord, and the result is that he feels distaste for so-called happiness in this or that world, in heaven or on other planets. The devotees are simply interested in being transferred to the personal association of the Lord, semicolon. They have no more attraction for temporary so-called happiness. That is the position of one who is yoga yukta. One who is fixed in mystic power is not disturbed by the allurement of this world or that world. He is interested in the matters of spiritual understanding or the spiritual situation. This sublime situation is very easily attained by the easiest process, bhakti yoga. Rijubhir yoga margai. A very suitable word used here is rijubhir, or very easy. There are different processes of yoga marga, attaining yoga perfection. But this process, devotional service to the Lord, is the easiest. Not only is it the easiest process, but the result is sublime. Everyone therefore should try to take this process of Krishna consciousness and reach the highest perfection of life. Bhaktya puman jita viraga, jata viraga, jata viraga. Having developed this taste, jata viraga, Aindriyad, drishta, shrutanmad, rachanano chintaya, chittasya, yatograhane yoga yukto, yatishyate rijubhir yoga margai. Nice verse. Now, this is a continuation from day before yesterday, right? Yesterday? Day before yesterday. Day before yesterday, 25. Where Kapila Dev is instructing, not just advising, but instructing his mother on how to become free from material attachment. Just going back a bit, she was expressing in humility, I'm too much attached. And it's understandable, sometimes we get attached. She was serving Kardama Muni for how many years? Tens of thousands of years. Tens of thousands of years. Some have been married for a few years. Tens of thousands of years. Living in the forest. Previously, she was the daughter of Swami Manu, big palace, aristocratic, regal facilities. She chose, her father assisted. She heard from Narada and other sages. Off in the forest, there's this wonderful Kardama Muni. She developed an attraction. She expressed that to her father. Her father took her there, and Kardama Muni said, yes, I'll accept. But so she lived in the forest, lean and thin, for tens of thousands of years, still with a desire, a transcendental desire, in this case, to have the personality of Godhead as her son. This is an important message. The supreme, for those who are devotees, Being a devotee is important. For those who are devotees and have a desire to serve the Supreme Lord, then the Supreme Lord recognizes the devotion, he recognizes the desire. So be careful what your desires are. And generally speaking, they will be fulfilled. They may not be fulfilled in the way that we think they should be fulfilled, but we're not the deciders in how things are transpire. So they both, Karna Muni had a desire when living in the forest, doing his yoga, he had a desire to have parental affection for the personality of Godhead. Sure enough, the Lord became his son after some number of daughters, and then his son. So, serving Karma Muni, not an ordinary personality, for tens of thousands of years, she was naturally attached, and he left, which is a bit of a enigma. It's puzzling. He wanted the Supreme Lord as his son. He became his son. And then he goes back to the forest to do meditation. On what? Personality of Godhead, who is his son. Isn't that puzzling? I find it puzzling. But he was setting an example. That's one nice thing. To the nice thing of not remaining attached, but setting an example of detachment. So, but it's not detached from the personality of Godhead. It's not attached to the personality of Godhead, leads to material detachment. So in any case, his leaving was not a material detachment. It was an example setting gesture. So Devahuti, having given up her royal family life and accepting the service of Karma Muni, a brahminical life in the forest, now he's gone. And she's feeling attachment, missing his association. Naturally, nothing wrong with that feeling. So what to do? She's calling it or describing it as a material attachment, not a material attachment. In any case, Kapila Dev is now giving her the solution. The solution is sadhu sangha. It doesn't change over the ages. It's the same solution. It may look differently. The form may be different, but the substance isn't different. Sadhu sangha. So he's describing the sadhu sangha principle. What are the characteristics of a sadhu? What are the effects of sadhu sangha? And now this verse. So it's all background. And one of the effects is directly addressing her question, which is how to overcome material attachment. And his expression is material attachment can be overcome by spiritual attachment. I'll say it again. Material attachment can be overcome by spiritual attachment. Material detachment doesn't mean throw it away or give it a bad name or karma sannyas and leave your home and just go to the forest and become a madman. Material detachment doesn't mean that. It may mean that, apparently, externally, but he's not advocating that. He's advocating sadhu sangha. And in sadhu sangha, you do with sadhus what sadhus do. And that's bhajana kriya. And specifically, hearing topics from the previous verse, then again in this verse, hearing topics of the Supreme Lord. And then what's the byproduct or the next step is jata vairaga indriyad. A person gains distaste. I mean, that's pretty strong. Distaste distaste. Distaste doesn't mean you spit at it. Distaste means you don't have the attraction. It doesn't hold the same charm and allure and expectation of enjoyment by senses meeting sense objects. In fact, there's no thank you, and no thank you that, is a little strong. No thank you. No thank you. Thank you, but no thank you. No. So now the object may be there, and if the appeal is take this object and enjoy it, I won't take the object to enjoy it, but I may see how that object can be used in Krishna's service. Just this morning, I was hearing Srila Prabhupada morning walk conversation about money, and the impersonalists will turn their head away and turn their hand away, and the devotee will extend their hand. Say, yes, let it be used in Krishna's service. So there are different ways, body, and oneself, intelligence, wealth, words in Krishna's service. So we don't toss them. We use them in Krishna's service. Yukta Vairagya. Yukta Vairagya. So this is the Yukta Vairagya principle taught by Kapila Dev. So Jata, the raga, Aindriya, the distaste or detachment is for the expectation of enjoyment with those objects, or the senses interacting. Aindriya, the indriyas, the senses interacting with objects in the mood of enjoyment. There's a distaste for that. Doesn't mean there's a distaste for the object. It's a distaste for the consciousness, the anticipation of there's some happiness out there. And just driving around the neighborhoods here in Austin, there must be a stone quarry nearby because so many houses are clad in stone. It's unique. I don't know if it's purposeful, like it helps keep the building not so hot or something like that. Maybe that's a reason. In any case, so getting a home. And it's natural. It's not like shame on you for getting home. But what was the purpose? And there can be a mix. But there can be more focus on the spiritual purpose of take anything, but, homes. So there's many, many, many homes. So it's becoming a householder. You hold the house. And how is it used? For what purpose? Like here, right inside the front door, there's the temple. It's Krishna's home, not my home. Now that's high consciousness. Most people are thinking, Krishna's got his room, and it's my house. There was a home that I would visit from time to time, years ago, Dr. Rao. And he would answer the phone, wouldn't say hello, or something like that. He would say, Krishna's house. And he trained his sons. They weren't devotees like he was, but that's how they were supposed to answer the phone. Krishna's house. This is before cell phones. Krishna's house. How can I serve you? To instill the consciousness that this is not mine. And since it's not mine, and since it belongs to someone besides me, although my name may be on the title, since it belongs to someone, it should be used for the purposes of that someone. And that's Yukta Vairagya. You can go more shallow or more deep with Yukta Vairagya, but that's the principle of detachment. And it's how is that principle of detachment awakened? It's by the awakening of an attraction for the topics of Krishna. Very simple. Shravanam Kirtanam. In the association of devotees, because everyone is hearing and discussing something, but in the association of devotees, or in the association of sadhus, devotees or sadhus, or sadhus in the making, then his topics about Krishna. Drishta Shrutan, seen in this world, Krishna's activities, mad rachananu chintaya, by constantly thinking about anuchintaya, and that's mad rachana, my activities. Mad rachana. Now Prabhupada elaborates. He has a translator's license. So mad rachana includes his activities of creation and maintenance and annihilation. And he describes this in the sections of the Bhagavatam earlier in this canto, for example, where the affairs of creation are pastimes. Pastimes of this world, not necessarily in this world, but of this world, pastimes of creation. And maintenance and winding up. It's a pastime. It's a pastime for the reciprocation with the desires of living entities that are rebellious. And it's a pastime. He does a pastime with them. Or on their behalf. To give them the opportunity to try to become enjoyers apart from him. Okay, try this pastime, see if you like it. And it's not a pleasant one. That's it by design. It's by design like that, not pleasant. And if one thinks it's pleasant, that's part of the illusory energy, is it appears to be pleasant, although it's not. So the goal is not to make it pleasant when it's not pleasant. The goal is to recognize it's not pleasant. But then, if it's not pleasant, then what to do? You make the best use of a bad bargain. You use it in Krishna's service, in the association of devotees, where you have the opportunity to hear about Krishna and his pastimes and his activities. During the question-answer session yesterday evening with the Chinese devotees, one asked a personal question, how'd you spend your day today? You know, because I let them know. Over here, today is Balaram's appearance, and now it's morning over there in China, and it's the beginning of Balaram's appearance day. The Purnima came for them in, the next day, calendar day. Because of lunar and solar were a little different. So that hearing and becoming more immersed, not as much as I would want it to be, but more immersed in Balaram's transcendental appearance and pastimes, and his loving dealings, particularly loving dealings with Krishna and other devotees. Twice in Balaram's pastimes, he engaged in rasa dance. Once was in Vrindavan, and another time was in Raivataka mountain. That's when Didvita came along and started harassing. He had a problem. But so it's not with Krishna, but also Krishna's devotees. And he engaged himself in a suitable way, transcendentally suitable way, not with the idea of being an enjoyer of sense pleasure, but with the idea of satisfying those who are Krishna's devotees, and even those who are his devotees of different kinds of his devotees. and Krishna's devotees. So what's the consequence of that kind of hearing? Mad rachana anuchintaya constant remembrance, constantly thinking about, remembering, absorption of the mind. And then, so that leads to detachment from even the notion of enjoying the senses and sense objects. It leads to that naturally, but then there's that simultaneously, there's a happiness. So that happiness is the strength of detachment. Say the opposite. From that happiness, detachment is easy. It's just a byproduct. Say it the other way. Without that happiness, then the default is an attraction for material happiness. Sense objects, the world is full of sense objects. Get some and become the enjoyers of those sense objects, called fruitive activity, that lead for the purpose of sense gratification. So just keep it simple. It's sense gratification. Fruitive activities to get objects, to get wealth, etc. So it's specific, twice repeated in the purport, in this world or the next. So in the Vedas, it's Vedic, how to do pious activities and perform sacrifices, etc., for the purpose of material elevation. Through piety, there's fruits of piety. Now, for bhakti, that's an obstacle. This is just, according to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in describing the stages of bhakti, one of the categories of anarthas that block one from experiencing pure devotional service is the anartha of enjoying the fruits of your pious activities. Because do pious activities, there's fruits. Or the fruits of devotional service. There may be some material or subtle honor, distinction, praise, title, position, something. And trying to be the tendency to be the enjoyer is strong. So the enjoyer of pious activities or the enjoyer of devotional service. It's obstacles. Whew. It's a rough road. So what are you supposed to do? It's really simple. Make Krishna at the center. And how do you do that? Sadhu Sangha. So what's this Sadhu Sangha magic? It's hearing topics of the personality of Godhead, hearing his name, form, qualities, etc. Well, we have a Bhagavatam class every morning, so we can do that regularly. Because the tendency is to go back to the default position. Okay, I did my Srimad Bhagavatam hearing. Now comes my fruitive work. And my fruitive work is to gain wealth so I can enjoy. And let me do nice sadhana so I can enjoy. Because it'll naturally bring fruits because it's piety. Just like this verse that Prabhupada quoted so many times in describing Krishna with the cowherd boys, Krita Punya Punja. Krita means activity, performing activity. Punya, piety. Punja. So they performed heaps and piles of pious activities. But it's not material piety, because material piety, by its definition, is to get material prosperity. But then the pious activities, just like hearing topics of Krishna, that's also punya. Punya Shravana Kirtana. But it's a different kind of piety. It has a different fruit. And if one hears properly, then it becomes this jata viraga, jata viraga aindriyat. I don't want the material portion of the fruits of spiritual piety. And if they do come, then what do? You offer them to Krishna. They may not come, they may come, they may not come. That's okay. If they don't come, that's okay. If they do come, there's a temptation to be the enjoyer. But if bhakti is sufficiently strong, that I don't want to become the enjoyer. I offer that to Krishna too. So the path is the path of the Bhagavad Dharma, or the sadhu sangha. The right kind of sadhu sangha is the Bhagavad Dharma kind. I want to do one more thing, and then I'm going to end. In the third line, Chittasya yato grahane yoga yukto. Chittasya. In speaking to new audiences, I've learned that they know something about yoga, but they don't really know what yoga is. And many of them, not all of them, many of them have heard of Patanjali. And Patanjali wrote his Patanjali Yoga Sutras, and he gives this nice definition of yoga practice. And in the nice definition of yoga practice, this word chitta is used. Yoga means diminishing or bringing to a quiet position the swirling of the waves of the mind. Definition: yoga means to diminish the swirlings of the mind. So chitta is used. And in his case, chitta means specifically the mind. However, those who comment, chitta can mean any one of the features of the subtle body. But the features of the subtle body, specifically the features of the mind, are very strong. And the tendency is just like waves in the sea. When the wave comes, what do? You're lifted or pushed down by the waves because they're very strong. So that's the swirling. And then there's the waves. And the waves, it's the waves of the mind. So here, same as used, chittasya yato grahane. Grahane, in the control. Chittasya yataha grahane. Engaged in what? Grahane, engaged in yoga yukto. No, Prabhupada has liberally translated this as devotional service, because there's yoga ladder and there are different types of yoga, and then there's the top rung and there's bhakti yoga, so he just goes yoga yukto means devotional service, because that's what Kapila Deva is giving, devotional service. Kapila Deva is an incarnation of Krishna giving. He also teaches Sankhya, but there's a purpose of Sankhya, and that's devotional service. There's another purpose of Sankhya, and that's detachment, etc., etc. There's the atheistic Sankhya, but his is the devotional Sankhya, same as Bhagavad Gita, Sankhya that leads to bhakti. So yoga yukto, engaging in devotional service, yoga yukto. By the engagement in devotional service, the swirlings of the mind, same as Patanjali, the swirlings of the mind subside. So this verse is describing the effects of sadhu sangha. So let's do it again. one of the effects, mentioned in this verse, is this dislike, distaste, or detachment. Viraga. Detachment from what? Detachment from sense pleasure. Looking at matter and saying, oh, here's a nice object, maybe that wouldn't be nice enjoyment. Not seeing the tendency to see like that is the material, and the material tendency of seeing is changed by the process of sadhusanga, which means mat rachana, hearing topics about him and becoming anuchintaya, absorbed in hearing topics about him. So it's nice. So detachment, attachment. Detachment, attachment to topics about Krishna, or chanting, or deity forms, or any of the 9 processes. Attachment equals detachment. Same as what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita chapter 5. What is called renunciation is the same as yoga. Because without becoming linked with the Supreme, there's no detachment. Detachment is the same as yoga, or linking with the Supreme. So bhakti is the best means of becoming clear who, not what, who is in the Supreme position, through the association of bhaktas who speak of topics of he who is the source of everything and his pastimes, including creation, maintenance, and destruction, specified in the word-for-word translation and in the purport, or any of the other activities of the Supreme Lord, because they're of a transcendental nature. And then another byproduct or sequential consequence is the mind becomes subdued. The swirlings of the mind is yoga. Swirlings of the mind become subdued. Now, if that's not what's happening with you, then it doesn't mean you're bad. It just means there's still, residual affinity for matter. And one of the ways of describing that is the spinning of the blades of the fan. Turn the switch off, and the blades of the fan continue spinning. Just don't turn the switch back on. Or continue sadhusanga and the activities with sadhus, specifically hearing topics of the Bhagavatam, because Bhagavad Dharma is hearing the Bhagavatam. It starts with Shravanam, Kirtanam, and Vishnu Smaranam, etc. And then the other processes of bhakti. So the other processes of bhakti become energized by Shravanam, Kirtanam properly done. Then the last line, Ya tishyate rijubhir yoga margai. Prabhupada's emphasis is on this word, rijubhir, is easily done. It's not for the purpose of enjoying the senses in this life or the next, although a major portion of the Vedas is enjoyment in the next life by different activities, worship and sacrifice and piety and so forth and so on. Why? Why is it there? Because people are interested. So it's knowledge. How do you get to that position? But the Bhagavad Dharma is teaching us, go beyond that, please. And how to go to beyond that, what's the consequence, what does it look like? So that's what's here. So end. Back to Devahuti. She wants to know how to overcome my material attachment. Some of us may also want to know. And by spiritual attachment. The diminishing of material attachment is a byproduct. And the swirlings of the mind subside. There's a spiritual happiness. And when that spiritual happiness that awakens, it's natural, spiritually natural, to want more. However, then there's a bit of a battle because our material conditioning says, this is important. I have to something. Demonstrate to the world that I can do it. I can also be an enjoyer, and my family members have their expectations of me to become a nice enjoyer, and the pushings from the material energy are there, and the devotees have to be realistic about their spiritual position and move in the right direction with some consistency of winding down on the material portion or material aspect of things by, that's the detachment, by attachment. It's just in 2 words, it's sadhu sangha. And then with that sadhu sangha comes so many strands of reality or lifestyle or, what goes on inside along with what goes on outside. It's a really nice section. I mean, the whole Bhagavatam is very nice, but this section is it's nice and is particularly appropriate for all times and for us. The Sadhu Sangha section. Discussion?
Devotees, any questions?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, my humble obeisance to you. Nice class, Maharaj. My question is, before I come to this Krishna consciousness, 7 years back, I was much involved in my work. I spend more time researching this and that, and I offer my employer that, new solutions and everything. I was so active on that. But after involving Krishna consciousness, maybe because of 16 rounds of chanting and doing some devotional services, I'm not able to actively participate in the work-related life. So, sometimes I think that, am I cheating myself saying that, I'm not involving actively in the work life, and also am I really progressing towards my goal? So this question, often comes in my mind. Am I really progressing towards the higher goal? That's the reason, I'm losing interest in the material activities, or, just, giving myself, just, so this question always comes in my mind.
What was the second alternative? Or what's the second alternative? Am I deceiving myself or cheating myself?
Yes.
And then what was the other?
Or, I can work completely involved in my work life, spend more time for the work and do what I was doing 7 years back, and, getting acknowledgement from the employer that, you are giving up always nice solution and other things. But these days, I'm not really doing anything.
Anything
Anything at all. So because
you're going to get fired if you're not doing anything.
yes, most of the time I feel that, Krishna is maybe keeping me in the work. That's what I feel that these days.
The only reason you're continuing in the workplace is Krishna's keeping you there.
Exactly. That's what
Really?
that's why my feeling.
Well, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu received letters from, because we heard this 2 evenings ago, from Rupa and Sanatan, they were in Ramakeli doing something they didn't want to do and asking Lord Chaitanya to rescue them. Do you remember his advice? In writing, he sent back a messenger with a little note. Like a woman but has a paramour, she should serve her husband very diligently so that he doesn't expect that she's got a lover on the side. But at the same time, she should meditate and anticipate that day when she can be with her true beloved. And in time, you'll be delivered. Now, they didn't have to do that forever, but they were very special souls. They're Krishna's, or Lord Chaitanya's eternal associates. So they were in the fast lane. But the principle applies to you and me and anyone, all of us. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, gave the same advice to Raghunath Das Goswami. Same advice. Don't be restless. The time will come. You can be with me for now. Engage in your worldly activities as if you're attached. But internally, this is Lord Chaitanya's teaching about bhakti. Internally, you cultivate your absorption and thought of Krishna. So it's not like, you're living in two worlds, because you're following an instruction. The scriptural instruction, in this case, two situations. It's consistent. Internal cultivation and external, perform the worldly duties as if you're attached. As if, but not attached. So that's not easy. How do you, it's kind of a sham or disingenuous. But it's following an instruction. So when you're in the workplace, just like someone else that's a student, because students say the same thing. I don't have any interest, some say. And I don't like this place, school, because there's no sadhu sangha. So what should I do? The context is different, the principle is quite similar. So in the workplace, if you excel, then people understand something's going on with you. And internally absorbed. No, it's not like one foot in two different boats crossing the river. It's both feet in one boat crossing the river. And the one boat is you're engaging in Krishna's service in the workplace. How is that? It's like material stuff. So it's when you're carrying bhakti, just like the student that's carrying bhakti, they have an opportunity, as you do in the workplace, to impact people that we're not likely to reach otherwise. Householders interact with lots of worldly people that we're not likely to touch by circumstance. So you can touch by the bhakti that you're carrying inside. By exemplary character, exemplary speech, exemplary performance. I'll give a little example. It's a classic. It's some years ago, but it fits the mold of your question. Somebody I know was engaged in the workplace. In their particular case, they were in the Board of Education of the city of New York. And their responsibility, imagine this one, their responsibility was all the guidance counseling departments of all the public schools in the city of New York. Not a guidance counselor in charge of all of them, giving direction and support and etc. And this person became a devotee. And they asked, your question was a question they asked. And I gave the same answer. And so they took it to heart. And they became, even more effective than before they started Krishna Bhakti. So their supervisor asked them a question. What's going on with you? I mean, they didn't have to say. The supervisor asked, "What's going on with you? You're so efficient, and when I come by your workstation, I just see you sitting there reading your book. And if there's a problem going on, in the supervisory realm, I ask for your advice, and you've already sorted through, and you give me your advice. Then you are reading your book. So what's going on with you?" They didn't know, but they felt something. So a student can do the same thing in school. You can create association by carrying bhakti. You can pass bhakti by carrying bhakti. And that's a service. It's a subtle, at the same time, a very important service to help propagate bhakti in the world. You carry it and you grow it, and whatever the circumstance that's required of you. So this devotee said to her supervisor, "I don't think you want to know what's going on with me." He said, "No, I want to know. I want to know." She said, Krishna consciousness. And her supervisor grasped her head and said, "Oh, no." Because she knew her supervisor was, in her college days, a super liberal person. And the super liberal person saw that the Hare Krishna people were cop-outs. Because her college days, the war in Vietnam was going on, and she was a protester of the war in Vietnam. And the Hare Krishna devotees didn't get involved in protesting the war in Vietnam. They were engaged in banging tambourines and hitting drums and singing and dancing. They're cop-outs. Useless people. Because they're not part of the anti-war group that I'm part of. So she tried to dissuade her from continuing, and she just smiled and carried on. What happened after that was the supervisor had a calamity. It does happen, and it happened. Her husband was diagnosed with cancer. So she went to her subordinate and said, "Where do you get your strength? Because I've got this calamity." And she gave an answer, and some time passed. The diagnosis continued to get from bad to worse. And she said, "Can I meet your teacher? I need some solace." So, she came and sat in my office. The one that was saying, the Hare Krishna people are cop-outs, is sitting in my office, wanting some counseling. Events wasn't planned by anyone except Krishna. And so you don't know what's on the other side of being Krishna conscious in the workplace. But if you're carrying bhakti, there's some yet unknown door to walk through and, give bhakti to people that don't have it right now, while anticipating that day when you can immerse yourself in the nine processes of bhakti. But become qualified for that, because otherwise you'll become restless if you just, stopped. And would it be responsible? Which was kind of like what Raghunath Das wanted. So Raghunath Das, when he received the instruction, he went back and he did exactly what Lord Chaitanya said. He showed that he had the prowess to deal with very sophisticated and difficult, challenging circumstances. His father and uncle were being chased after by the treasurer of the Nawab, because he thought they were embezzling the Nawab's money and taking money that belonged to him, the treasurer or the tax collector. It was the tax collector, not the treasurer. So the stories are different, but the principle is what's important. So what should you do? There's this detachment from worldly, a growing attraction for spiritual, and your responsibilities in this world are not yet fulfilled. So time is awaiting when life has evolved to the point where you can wind down and even walk away from. But prepare yourself and qualify yourself. And meanwhile, what do? Don't be stuck. You're not. Be Krishna conscious. Easier said than done. But karma sannyas is not what Krishna advises. Arjuna suggests it's not what Krishna advises. So if it's not karma sannyas, then what is it? Karma palatyag. In the workplace. And then increase from karma palatyag to bhakti. Grow your bhakti creeper in that situation. And how do I do that? To put the puzzle pieces together, and the picture becomes not so difficult. Not so difficult to discern what's to be done. Then there's decisions as you're moving along, but that's nice. Easier said than done, but that's from Scripture and from Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. That's the teaching that's advised for us. And the time will come. If you do that nicely, the time will come. Krishna will welcome you. There are more obstacles and more obstacles for Raghunath, but he got Lord Nityananda's mercy, and therefore he got Lord Chaitanya's mercy. That was the piece that was missing for him. Okay?
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Thank you for the detailed answer. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
My question is, to what extent should we focus on pious activities, even a little? Because sometimes that's the only way people can see us as an example of as good people, or just to get the foot in the door.
To what extent? And my answer is, to the extent that you can Krishnaize those activities, to that extent. And to the extent that you can't, then don't. That's the dial. That's, like the dimmer switch. And then making it brighter. I'll give two examples that came to Prabhupada's attention. Promoting vegetarianism and feeding people. So feeding people is a common charitable cause, helping poor people. But Prabhupada and Bhaktisiddhanta indication who's not poor. The rich people are also poor, and the poor people are also poor. So, Daridra Narayan is not the advocacy. The advocacy is everybody's poor. And so if we give Krishna Prasadam, and there's different ways to give Krishna Prasadam, but Krishna Prasadam is for everybody. Krishna Prasadam is not just for poor people. So you can contemplate how that which is in the world a pious activity and make it a Krishna conscious, not just a pious activity. And the world can think this is this is nice. And you're thinking this is transcendental. So for example, prasadam distribution where it's sold, not just given away. Or conduct Hare Krishna festivals. I did this personally for a whole bunch of time in New York City, at your New York City Shirda. All over the city. Different, with permits, setting up or taking part in street fairs and things like that, where we had all this paraphernalia and lots of prasadam, and all kinds of people didn't have to come to the temple to get prasadam. They came to us to get prasadam. One man, so one time, I remember this very clearly. We were at City Hall Park for a festival. City Hall is kind of lower Manhattan. There's this giant City Hall building, and then there's a park behind that giant City Hall building. So we had a City Hall Park festival. We called it Festival of India. And kirtan, books, book tables, paraphernalia on the tables, and prasadam. We sold it, and all of it. And so it paid for the festival. And one businessman, Wall Street guy, who went for a walk during his lunch break, and that's where we were, at City Hall Park. And he said, people don't understand you guys, but everybody likes your food. So you should do lots of that. So he was poor, although he was wealthy materially. He was poor because, where was his Krishna bhakti? That's poor. So he was getting Krishna bhakti, and supposing some poor people came along and couldn't afford to pay, we would give them. But everyone else was, because just getting something for free, it's not respectable. So they pay. They don't mind. They pay so much more in restaurants and places they go for lunch. It's a big part of the economy in America and all over the world. Eating. I mean, go through airports and just filling eating places. And they're packed. So engage in prasadam distribution. But not just, for feeding poor people. That takes a pious activity into the transcendental realm, for example. And some portion of it that can be used, specifically to go out of your way to give prasadam to, whoever. For example. That's a for example. It's not like the only, it's just an example. Cow protection. Pious activity. Welcome to Texas. Who understands about cow protection in Texas? Is it possible? Yeah. So there's a pious activity, and educate people about not just, not just the pious people that are vegan and the impious people that eat anything. Promote cow protection. And that's certainly pious, but if it's done properly, then it's transcendental. That's commitment. To have a cow is a big deal. It's not like having a child, even, because eventually children grow up. And cows, it's for their life. Children, it's not for their life, but for cows. So I when I came back from China, I stopped and stayed for a while in Carmel Valley, which is near San Francisco. And there's a husband and wife couple. They have 2 cows, and they do ahimsa milk production, and they supply milk to the temple and to others, but a big dedication. And so they've learned all about how to do it and so forth and so on, and they're very committed. It's certainly pious, but it's more than pious. So, etc. Is it possible? Yeah. It does take commitment? Yeah. No, welcome to life. Commitment. Commitment to pious activities. And what kind of mileage is there for not just supplying people with ahimsa milk, but understanding the principle of cow protection, etc. The easy way is don't make commitment, just do some pious activity. Okay. It's better than doing impious activity. But it's not how to propagate Krishna consciousness. And becoming oneself immersed in Krishna consciousness. Because commitment to Krishna consciousness requires commitment of time and energy and resource. So according to your capacity, according to your disposition, you spiritualize. And you step back and propagate the message of Krishna, because that's itself punya shravana kirtana. It encompasses the pious activities. And is it possible that people can become attracted to Krishna Katha? Definitely. And it can be through a temple that does it, or through, XYZ that does it. There's XYZ options galore. Just get creative. Then it's punya shravana kirtan. Book distribution. How novel. And people are buying the books, so there's some attraction. Your question is rooted in so that people are attracted when they're not necessarily going to be attracted to direct devotional activity. They may not receive an invitation to come to the temple and come to the temple. So what can you do? Go to them, meet them on their ground, and do something with them that's to them nice. The big part of the nice for book distributors is their personality, the qualities that they carry because they're devotees. Harava bhaktashu kutoga mahadguna. You know the verse. There's a verse in the Bhagavatam that the qualities of the devas become decorations of a devotee. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavat akinchana sarvaya gunaistatra samasatesra. So you develop qualities of devotee by your bhakti, and meet people with books or with prasadam or with something, and influence them by the bhakti, not just by being clever in something, by your own bhakti, and then give them the Shravanam Kirtanam opportunity. And lots of people are taking books, and that's spiritualizing lots of people. It works. Not for everybody, but what's one thing that's going to be for everybody? Prasadam is pretty much for everybody. Almost everybody. Some people. Anything else? Yes.
Guru Maharaj, there is an online question.
Okay, let's hear.
I think you addressed it, but I'll read it. Is sponsoring Prabhupada books also a pious activity?
Of course. It's transcendental piety. I know somebody that their thing is sponsoring, giving away Bhagavad Gitas. And because they do that, they have people that give them Bhagavad Gitas to give away. And, supposing somebody gets a Bhagavad Gita and they don't give a donation, they may not value it as much. So then there are ways to qualify recipients of a free Bhagavad Gita. Anyway, but yes, for sure, sponsoring.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So my question is about the results of pious activities.
About what?
Results of the pious activities he had mentioned, like whatever, means if we get some results. For example, at the end of each important section of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a phala sloka, what will you get by reading this section?
Yes.
So means if I tell a story to my daughter, means if it is Narsimha Avatar story or Gajendra Moksham story, the result of that is will not get any dursapana, bad dreams. So I tell the story and also I tell the result okay, if we listen to this, we'll not get bad dreams. So she remembers only that section. So somehow we are attached to that results, Maharaj. So how to handle it differently or how to tell the story
with your child
properly?
or you?
Both of us.
Both of us. Well, there's hooks, but then there's beyond the hooks. So you can see, yes, there's benefits, and beyond those temporary, there's permanent. And some people are attracted to the temporary. And that's okay. Let them be attracted. Connect to Krishna or Bhagavad Gita, and the lure, the worm on the end of the hook is the material benefit that they'll get. But we know, and also they know, it's far beyond that. Okay. So stay focused. And if you stay focused, it will help your dependents become focused. If not, immediately become focused. Because the essence is the transcendental, not the temporary.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Yes, Guru Maharaj, that's all the questions.
That's it.
Yep.
Srila Prabhupada ki.
His Holiness Romapada Maharaj ki